So in the spring, we're gonna start a small group for naked gardening. How many people? I learned later what kind of camp they were. Okay. So, my first question for you is: were there any? Did you have any surprising insights from what you heard from the film tonight? Anything like aha moments for you, or something you hadn't thought about before in that way? Or something you hadn't thought about at all?
Judging who has a record.
Judging who has a record? Oh.
The criminal record as they cross the border.
Right, and that we automatically think that a criminal record may be, something bad. I mean, on one level, and where if they have a criminal record, if it's for civil disobedience, is it bad or not bad? That's an interesting question.
For appearance.
Yeah. Right, one's appearance, one's physical appearance, and related to, he's more likely to be a hoodlum or not, and hoodlum. How about that for an old word? Yeah, getting old. So, Chip, do you want to say?
I kind of resonated with the what makes you valuable comment, and that you kind of made it sound like it's not such a bad thing to have possessions if you're using them for the benefit of others and to do the work of God.
I like what he said. He used the passage from one of the letters. I forget where I would say. But if you're not using your possessions in freedom to serve and freedom to love our neighbor, then you're not really free. Then are they binding you? The possessions bound you. Anyone else? Something that they heard that was an aha moment or something that really resonated with you on a deep level?
One of the white-haired dude from Toronto, didn't catch his name, but he said that as Christians, or that we every day we strive for integrity, and some days some days are better than others. Sometimes we get somewhere and sometimes we don't. And I think that's part of, we live in this kind of guilt that we're not always doing everything, putting down everything and following Jesus. And I think if little by little, if we do enough and deny ourselves, part of your sermon, because we're going to weave in the sermon, the denying ourselves, like deny yourself something and then put it to good use, but it doesn't mean I'm tired of an all or nothing kind of attitude that makes us feel guilty about not doing everything all the time. And that, I think that comes a lot from like the Christian type of thing, where the Bible's read to the point where it's like all or nothing. Like you have to do it all, just to give away everything and go, follow this cross. But I think there's times where you can deny yourself something and then put that something to good use. Now I'm a heretic.
What's that?
Now I'm a heretic.
You actually made me think of what Pastor Rowe wrote on the board for confirmation this weekend. Integrity, living a principled life, honesty, truth, where your deeds match your creeds. So, do you think that, how important is the stewardship of land and creation? And to what degree do we as God's people push that stewardship?
Poorly.
Say more.
We were just discussing it here.
Nice and loud, Joan, please.
We were discussing it here. Go through the building, go through our practices right here in the church. We're terrible. There was paper that hasn't been recycled that's left all over. There's lights on in the narthex which are absolutely, in the sanctuary, absolutely unnecessary on a sunny day. I mean, the list can go on and on. We don't do it. We do what's convenient. We talk about it.
Right. Right. And so whose job is it? That becomes,
Everybody's. Ours.
Right. So if you see, it's interesting, there's been a couple Sundays where I turned on the lights in the church and I had the spots on up above, and I've seen other people turn them off. And I'm totally okay with that. So it's like, and this is when I first came, I just, pushed all the things up. And, first off, the extra spots on the ceiling draw a lot of energy and heat, too. But yeah, I'm glad someone did that. At first I was like, who are you? I don't even know who did it, but I was kind of like, who are you? And then there is that. So if we see the lights on where they not be on, we can turn that on.
And then tell the person that comes and turns it back on again.
Or to say, hey, is there a reason you need the lights on? It might be a better way to approach that rather than sure. So, but to push it a little bit more, a lot of environmental things, we can do our own thing, and are we doing our own thing in our own household and home? But what about businesses and corporations and the government with regard to how...
Also, all the groups that meet here, we should make it very clear what we expect.
We do.
Do we?
Mm-hmm. We have been, and lately there's been even more clarity. In fact, we just had a big meeting with them in November with all the community groups, going over our expectations and what it means to stay here and to use our space. And then there's a checklist that every group is to fill out every time that goes through all the things to make sure they shut the windows, lock the doors, turn off the lights, turn off the air conditioning, the heat, I also thought that, it might be good to have lights, motion sensor lights in the rooms as opposed to, actual manual switches, or some kind of thing that they go off after a certain time, should someone forget. I like Pastor Rikash had a question here. Could you live a less lavish lifestyle and be happy and fulfilled? Would Jesus be disappointed in our lavish lifestyles today? What would Jesus say about you? About what you have in relation to what you give? And then the question is, what's lavish? Some of us probably don't consider we have a lavish lifestyle. Compared to other people around the world, and they might say it's lavish.
I think there is a tendency to justify your own lavish existence by comparing to people who have much more lavish existence than your own. I'm not as bad as them. Of course, there's a lot of people that are a lot worse off than we are.
So it's an interesting question. Thoughts about that question?
I think you could live a less lavish lifestyle if you didn't have jealous tendencies. I think there's, with the statement here, there's a lot of emotion that's involved in living a lavish lifestyle. I think it's about, it's an all about me world. What can I do to keep up with the Joneses?
Right. Well, even I remember, it's not even about keeping up sometimes, it's about appearances. I just had a cocktail party at my house on Super Bowl day for all my friends who don't care about football. So we had a game day party. But I remember going through this thing like, what are people going to think about my house? Are they, is it going to be nice enough, or is it going to be, my neighborhood's on the edge, it's a little edgy, are they going to think about that? And I just remember kind of watching myself and all the judgments I was having about thinking about how people might judge me. So yeah, I think that's very real. I'm sure I'm not the only one who does those kinds of things, in regard to, appearances and.
I shared the story about the first argument that my new bride and I had 2 days after we were married. And
It took you 2 days?
and basically it was over having china, a new bride with a new china pattern and everything. And what I said to her, I said, you tell me that if you had $100 in your hand for a place setting of china and you walked into a store to make that purchase, but sitting outside the door was a child who was, starving to death, would you be able to walk by that child, who might die, and go in and buy your china? Well, yeah, we do that every day, We know that there are children dying around the world from all kinds of things, and yet we walk into stores and buy things that we really don't need. I was challenged by Mr. Russo, the last person who spoke, in terms of the lifestyle that he had chosen, because it, for him, best exemplified what Jesus' lifestyle was all about and what he would have him do, in living basically out on the street and, hands-on with children who don't have much, cooking for them and being with them. So it just raised the question for me about, I wonder what Jesus would say about my lifestyle, how I'm living and what I have in relation to what I give.
Can I be devil's advocate here?
Say what?
Can I be a devil's advocate here?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to give all this stuff up. That means that a whole bunch of people are going to lose their jobs because we're not buying any of this stuff. Now what do we do? That means there's that many more people we're going to have to go feed.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't that somehow count?
That's an interesting question, and I know that there's I forget where I heard this interview, but there's a sense where if we were to really take seriously the things Jesus said, the economy would have to change.
Well, that's what
And is it an economy of only production, of things, or can it be an economy of service? Can it be, and I don't know the answer to this, and they were hypothesizing, how the economy would have to change in order that people could, earn a livelihood. And then it would become all about, priorities. If I were to ask you 10 years ago, do you have an extra $100 to blow on your phone a month? And you'd say, no way. And, and how many people make that a priority? They're blowing $100 easy every month on their cell phone. So now we can't live without it. So it's, I don't have the answer directly, Joan, but there is a sense of, and to what degree can we continue to keep consuming? And do we have to change, the angle? Do people need to be retooled, retrained, or,
That's the whole question of sustainability.
Right, sustained way.
As much as I admire those people who, bought the farm, 4 families who went and bought the farm, that's great for that set of 4 families, but the million people who live in New York, there's no practical way that they're all going to get up and go, live together on a farm in a sustainable fashion. So given where we are in the world today and how the world exists today, I don't know the answer either, but, it's hard to make sustainability work for everybody.
It's a question of do you have one watch, or do you need 7 watches? there's always that thing. I think, Pastor, you said last week about the size of the house. Is this the size of the house that's the right size of the house? Or can I have a smaller size house and make do with a little less? I'm a big, online shopper, so I get emails. I mean, I must say like probably 50 junk emails a day from different places saying, coupon, save 50%, buy two, get one free, whatever, free bag. And I really have to just delete very quickly because I can get sucked into that. I need a new pair of pants. I need a new shirt. I need, but I don't need that. I have a whole closet full of clothes, and my kids have clothes on their back, and we don't need all of that. We're bombarded with it in a way that makes us like think we need it, and it's hard to turn that off. So I guess in the spirit of like Lent, I've given up my online shopping.
What happens is on the Kohl's flyer thing, it's like, well, I might be missing the opportunity for the sale, and right, missing something.
Now we know why the market went down.
It went It's very true. The FedEx guy knows my address very well.
And see, we're not going to come to all the answers by any means. It's complicated, but I think it's important that we have the discussion, and begin talking about it and looking at it and wrestling with it, and ourselves and this group, etc. So next week, Ryan will be back with us, and he'll be leading the next section. And I don't know the topics, so you just have to come and see.